Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got a fabulous returning guest. We don't have many guys on the show, but I really love this particular guy and I wanted to give him another invite to come back on the show. His name is Terraine. He's a coach. So welcome, Terraine.
Thank you, Lyn. It's a pleasure to be back and I'm excited for our conversation today.
And today we've decided we're going to talk about success in love, because quite often, as we all know, relationships are usually our most challenging thing to get right, aren't they, in our adult lives?
Oh, yes, especially the romantic side. It seems that we're trying to figure it out and we want to find love in all the right places, but many of us have been finding it in all the wrong places. So hopefully we can share some success stories.
That'd be great. So, Terraine, over to you. Just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself to start off with.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you, Lyn, for the opportunity. It's fantastic to be back. To all the listeners out there, my name is Terraine. I am a podcast host. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I help at-risk women find success in the three types of relationships: personal, professional, and romantic. And I'm here today to share some of the success stories and success tips.
Excellent. So let's start off with what typically do you attract in terms of clients as regards the challenges that they face initially?
Yeah, so many of the women that I work with, they're either living at the poverty line, like here in Canada, the average income for, let's say, the average man is between 42 to 45,000. For women, average is a little bit lower than that. So many of these women are probably in the $30,000 range when it comes to their income. So I'm helping women who are near poverty, as well as women who've been abused or harmed in some way, either physically, mentally, verbally, or emotionally, and financially, which is a big one in recent years. So those are the type of people that I attract as clients and that I continue to work with.
Well, bless you for that. It's a fantastic job that you're doing. I really honor and commend you for that, because it takes a lot of care and compassion in terms of our nature as human beings to get involved in that sort of work, doesn't it?
It does. And the interesting thing about what I do, at least from my perspective, is that many of the women that I work with, they've been harmed by men. So these are people that look like me, walk like me, talk like me. And to gain their trust, you have to be very genuine and very sympathetic, in some cases empathetic. So it does take a lot out of you, but the rewards are so great when you help them find success.
So let's on a cheerful note, talk about some success stories. And so let's talk about, what typically has been an issue for a particular person, and then what did they have to overcome to achieve success in love?
Absolutely. So some of the background of these clients, as we mentioned earlier, they're looking for the success. So one of the beautiful things is when they find success, they're able to trust the other gender again. They're able to fall in love again. Many of my clients are all over the age of 50, 55. So you have people in later years who sometimes, and we've probably experienced this as well, Lyn, is we think love has an expiry. Well, I'm over 40 and I can't find love again. That's for the 20-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
No, we can find it at any age. So that's a success story in itself, helping people to dispel that notion and saying that, yes, you can be 50, 55, 60, 70. You could be 1,000 years old and love is for you. The butterflies in your stomach don't ever go away.
That's true. You know what? My nan on my father's side got remarried at the age of 77. So all good.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to be, maybe if I don't get married now, even though I'm trying to figure it all out myself, definitely 70s, 80s. Hell, if I live to be 1,000 years old, I'm going to be walking down an aisle with 2 robotic legs. I don't care how I make it work.
Oh, bless you. And you'll be a fantastic catch and some woman is going to be very, very lucky to have you in her life.
I'm hoping so. It's interesting, the dynamic between men and women. It's It's ultimately we all want the same thing. It's just how we go about it. That's the difference between men and women. So once we figure that out, you can definitely find success because the person you want is out there. So let's prepare you to go find that person and live your version of happily ever after.
Absolutely. So a lot of your work then it obviously revolves around trust. So how do you embark on that journey with your clients that you work with?
Well, I show them how it looks when it works. I'm surrounded in my 20s, I wasn't really surrounded by successful marriages, but now later on in my life, I'm surrounded by it all the time because I've made changes. So, what I do to help the women along the road is to show them what I've done and the success that has led to, and to let them know that the success that I found isn't age based, it's personality and confidence based. So once they begin to understand that, that's when they realize they say, "Hey, yeah, you know what? Traine's able to get a long-term relationship, so can I. He's able to do this, so can I." And they're getting it from the male perspective. So interesting enough, when they'll say things like, "Okay, what if I wear this outfit? What if I wear that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like that's what you want, right? Like you want to be visually appealing, and then your confidence is going to show." So it's interesting to see the type of questions they ask once their defense is down, and they're like, "Yes, I can do this." And I have a man who's telling me that I can do this because he's giving me what men look for.
Absolutely, because quite often, and I went through this phase myself. If you've been through it, harm at the hands of a man, your guard's up, your heart's, firmly behind locked doors, and you don't want to let anybody in, and because of that fear of being hurt again. So it's also about that energy that you're exuding, isn't it? It's also about, being open to having and attracting that right relationship for yourself.
It is. A bad relationship is like a hot stove. Like if you ever put your hand on a hot stove and burned it, you begin to second guess every time you're near that stove. And that's the same thing when it comes to relationships. So that's the example that I would give to them. But you're absolutely right, Lynn. Like when you've been harmed in such an intimate setting as a relationship, it can stay with you for a long time. But on the flip side is that you can definitely work to get over it and work through it, which is a plus.
So what is one of the ways, do you think, as in terms of tips that you've got to offer, Terraine, that we can learn to trust again as women?
First and foremost, know the type of person you are. That will allow you to take a moment and say, okay, as of right now, I don't want a man, woman, or whatever it is. Just say that, okay, who am I? I'm Terraine. What does Terraine represent? And then you begin to fulfill that. Because if someone were to ask you, okay, tell me about yourself, you can't say, well, I'm Terraine and I have this job and things like that. The job doesn't define you. Who are you? Strip away the job, strip away the car, strip away the house. That's the first step. The second step is to understand the type of person you want. As you get older in age, you don't have time to waste. Yeah, in your 20s and your teens, you can date 1,000 men and 1,000 women, and you can go on a million dates and eat for free for 2 years. But in your 30s and your 40s, you definitely can't do that. So I give them a checklist and say, okay, here's a list. Give me 5 things that you don't want the person to be, because it's always easier for people in general to give us what they don't want versus what they want. And then I go from there.
No, that's a very, very, very interesting point, because I've had the same feedback from my clients as well, is that it's easier for them to say what they don't want rather than what they want. But once you've defined what they don't want, it's easy then to look at the opposite of that to get clear about what they do want.
You're absolutely right. Like someone will say that Terraine, let's say, for example, some men will say, Terraine, I don't want a woman that has kids. Okay, perfect. I don't want a woman that is over 50. Okay, fine. Everyone has a preference. Then on the flip side, women will say that I don't want a man that's under 6 feet and not making 6 figures. Perfect. So the opposite of that is you want a man that's over 6 feet. You want a man that earns 6 figures. For the men out there, you want a woman that's probably in her 20s or 30s, and you want her not to have any children. So we get to understand the preferences. But one thing I always highlight to them is make sure the preference isn't a prison, meaning that it's locking you away from being able to find someone because you're so strict and specific on your preference.
Absolutely. Such as the height thing, for example. It's very easy, I think, for women, especially if they are tall themselves, to think automatically, I need or want a man that's taller than me. But they're dismissing, a whole host of probably fantastic men just on that. alone that could be a great match for them otherwise.
Oh yeah, I told one of my friends once. I asked her, I was okay, I asked her the type of man that she wants, right? And she listed, she's like, well, he has to be this skin color, for example. I was like, okay, perfect. Is that the most important thing? Yeah, she said it's top two. And I said, okay, so would you date a homeless man that was that skin color? She said no. So I was like, okay, so money is more important, because if the skin color was the most important thing, you can date someone that was homeless. So it's always interesting to test their preference and see how far they're willing to stand by it.
Yeah, and I think it's more about how a guy makes you feel from a woman's perspective than how they actually look, because they could look drop dead gorgeous but treat you like shit. And
Oh yeah.
which would you rather have in a relationship? A guy that's looks really gorgeous, that you think, yeah, he's really hot, I really find him physically and sexually attractive? Or would you want that treats you bad, or a guy that really treats you like a queen and a princess, who isn't actually as physically good looking or attractive?
Oh yeah, there's some good looking monsters out there. Everyone thinks Shrek is cute. So, it's tough. It is tough.
It's getting that fine balance, because obviously the physical thing is the first thing we notice, so there has to be some sort of physical thing. But I think for women that's less important, to be honest. I think it's the men that are more visual in terms of where the attraction goes. But I think certainly for me, my experience has been, and certainly with the clients I've dealt with, that it's less so about the physical, as long as there is some sort of flirtatious banter going on, and that they're attractive in that way. That's usually a good starting point. And certainly for me, I can remember in my last relationship, I didn't necessarily find him that physically attractive to start with, but I tell you what, once he kissed me passionately, I was gone. I melted.
Oh yeah, that first kiss can determine everything. Trust me. If it's a bad first kiss, I've talked to them, they're like, there's no second date after a bad first kiss, and there's definitely no sex after a bad first kiss.
Absolutely. But isn't it, what's your sort of personal feeling on women sort of, I mean, unfortunately today, women are very easy to think that, they need to offer sex quite early on in a relationship. And I'm very much about, holding, at least, it's obviously got to be their decision, but, at least advising caution in that respect, in terms of, make a guy work for it, and holding back a bit more, like we used to do in the old days. Not that we want to, necessarily say the old days were the best. They weren't necessarily, but I do think around the sex issue, it's so easy these days for guys to get what they want, and then you feel you're disposed of in that regard, rather than getting to really know and court somebody like we used to do in the older days.
Yeah, the sexual that's a very interesting question, a very good one. Sex to me has always been mutually beneficial, right? So both parties benefit from it. But I will agree that you want to make sure that the moment is right. And I believe that too many people have sex as a confirmation or conclusion to the date. So for example, he bought me dinner, he took me out, so I feel obligated to have sex with him. And that is not how you should view anything. Or on the flip side, the man will say that, okay, she wants to have sex with me, but I have to do this as a prerequisite. I think, to your point, Lyn, that people have to work for it, quote unquote, and make sure that it's something you want to do 110% of the time. But before you do so, make sure there's healthy boundaries created. You don't have to have sex on the first date. You don't even have to have sex on the second date. But if you choose to do so, make sure it is appropriate and make sure it is right.
And not feel pressure just because a guy's bought you dinner. It's up to him if he chooses to pay for the dinner. I really like that. I really appreciate that if a guy offers to pay for a meal, and I don't feel obliged to want to jump into bed with him on that premise. But I think it's always nice then from there onwards to sort of at least offer to split the bill, even if he insists he still wants to pay. But it isn't a case of give and take, is it? In that regard, that you need to feel obliged to jump into bed with a guy just purely because he's bought you a meal.
Yeah, there isn't that obligation. And what I would say from the very beginning is, and this is probably going to sound a little harsh for those listening. When you're setting up the date, ask yourself the question before you go on the date. And this is for men and women. Do you find this person as of today attractive enough to sleep with them? If the answer is no, reconsider the type of date you're going to have. So one of the ways to reconsider that is, I'm not going to have the first date at his place or her place after 9 p.m., right?
No.
Because there's only two things open after 9 p.m. Legs and burrito places, okay? And the second thing is, when you're reconsidering that, maybe a day date is better. Maybe you go for a walk so there's more of a conversation, because that's how I have my dates. Let me tell you, Lyn, when I was dating like I was a crazy man out here, it was always before a specific time. I didn't do any dates after 5 p.m. And it was always in a very public place because I didn't want to give her any mixed signals, especially if I say, okay, do you want to come over at 10 p.m. at my place? Or if she asks me, okay, do you want to come over here at 11 p.m.? Because when you're alone and when it's at night, you may feel more obligated, although that is not right, to do certain things that you necessarily wouldn't do 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's very easy to make a bad decision, and then once it's done, we can live with a bit of regret after that, especially if there's no follow-up call or date that happens afterwards, and we was really into that person.
I agree. I've been on dates where certain things have happened and the person has said something or they wanted a little bit more. Actually, I'll share a story. I went on a dinner date. This was years ago, and she was the daughter of the landlord of the condo that I was renting. So because they were so close in nature, I didn't want anything to do with it. But we went on a date and we had a conversation, and she was smart enough. This is what she did, Lyn. She's like, "Oh, is it okay if I use the bathroom in the condo?" So this was her way of getting into my condo after the date because I didn't want her to come back. So as she went to the washroom to use it, she came back and she was less dressed than when she went in there, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So it caught me off guard, and I said, "Oh, just so you understand, this is not necessarily something that I would want. I appreciate the gesture, but it's not something that I want." And looking back on that situation, I could have maybe set stricter boundaries, but I did have that conversation after the fact, because some people in that situation will just go along with it because that's the lesser of two evils. But sometimes just going along with something, as you mentioned, leads to regret. And if the person doesn't call you back, you feel bad. And you have this wide range of emotions that you're experiencing when it was easier just to say, you know what, I'm not ready. Can we continue this on a second or third date?
Absolutely. So going back to the topic of success in love, Terraine, are you in a position where you could share some of your success stories that you've had with your clients?
Yeah, so one of the clients I work with, I had her outline some of the things that was preventing her from finding the type of person that she wanted. And in the beginning, it was a little bit more of a challenge for her because, like many of us, we don't ever write what is wrong with us, to be honest, right? So what I did was I rephrased it and said, okay, what is it that you like about yourself? And out of the things that you like about yourself, how would that impact your next relationship, positively or negatively? And that was a great exercise for her because many of the things that she listed had no bearing on a relationship. And she began to realize that. So for example, she said something along the lines as, well, I feel that I'm not earning enough money. And then I'll turn around and ask her, I was okay, do you believe that money is important to the type of man that you want? And she said no. So I was like, fine, perfect. So now you understand that money or your income level doesn't impact the type of man that you want. So that's one of the early steps that I have the women that I work with take.
That's a really good exercise to do because quite often we can get sucked into rabbit holes which don't have no bearing on how that's going to impact a future relationship at all.
Yes. You know, we're our hardest and most difficult critic, right? Like we'll say things like, I'm not tall enough. I weigh too much. I don't make enough money. But sometimes when you look at the type of person that you want, you begin to realize, hey, they may not care about my height. They may not care about my weight. They may not care about my job. They're looking more for internal things, right? Am I a nice person? Can I inspire them? Am I not going to make them upset? So these are some of the successful steps, because you want to make sure that you're highlighting your strengths when you're looking for the type of person that you want.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. And we've all got strengths, you know. I don't care who you are in a position where you can list what you like about yourself and what traits you love about yourself and what strengths you've got as part of who you are. And I don't believe there's one single person on the planet that couldn't at least name a few things about themselves that is a great strength that they couldn't make a couple of lists around eventually. But just coming up with a few things starts the ball rolling, doesn't it?
It does, and it builds your confidence. Because like the women I work with, many of them I've not heard anything good for years, right? Like especially when you're in an abusive relationship, the person in many ways is putting you down. Either they're talking down to you, or they're mistreating you, or they're treating you in a way that is going to make you feel less than. So to find the courage to say good things about yourself and then to share those positive qualities is definitely strength and courage building for my clients.
Yeah, it's a lovely exercise to do, and to see them light up and actually think, you know what? Yeah, I forgot about those things about myself.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like one person, she shared that she loves to cook, and then I asked her, I was okay, let's build on that. So what is that you like to cook? And she listed all these things that she likes to cook, and she ran and she got her recipe book. I was like, you see, you had something that you love so much, but it was buried. The love for it and the passion was buried deep inside you, and the actual book that contained this love and passion was buried somewhere else. You're hiding what you love, and I think that is so unfortunate that many of us hide the things that we love and that we're passionate for. But when you bring that out and you see them light up, like you mentioned, and you see they're full of smiles and they're so happy to share it, that is a true representation of success.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like to reinforce is that we always can take our power back, can't we? You know, it's quite often the case that if we have been in or are currently in a less than healthy relationship, we can inadvertently and unconsciously give our power away in thinking that, you know what, I'm just the victim in this situation, and that's what I'll always be, rather than thinking, you know what, I can change that, and it's up to me, and I do have the power to do that. You know, I don't have to accept that behavior. I can walk away. I might need some help to do so, but you know, I can do that, and I can gain my power back by knowing that I am good enough, I am worthy of love, and I am going to go forward and attract healthier relationships. And it is possible.
It is. And when you, the beautiful thing about relationships that I find, and you probably experience this as well, Lyn, when it's going well, it is such an amazing feeling. Like you feel like you're walking on cloud nine, like everything just makes sense. Like you step outside your house, the sun is shining brighter, the leaves are moving better. You start to see animals play, you see children having fun. Everything makes sense. And that's the type of life that I want for every single person, where when you wake up in the morning, you're smiling. When you go to bed, you're smiling. And in between those two smiles, everything is just radiating positivity.
I love that, Terraine, because you know, I think for many of us that's what we all want, but we don't know how to, or we haven't been given the tools or the strategies or the teachings around how to change what we're currently experiencing if we're not living that currently.
Oh yeah, like coaches need coaches, mentor needs mentors, and everyone in between needs someone. And years ago, when you wanted guidance, you went to, let's say, an elder in the family or someone who's a little bit more experienced. And because of the disconnect in many families, you don't have that types of conversations. But they've taken in the form of somewhere else, such as yourself and me and many others. Someone I spoke to one of my clients today, actually someone I interviewed, and we're talking about how years ago we used to give the rose to the lady and said, you know what, Lyn, here's a rose, and I choose you and you're the person I want to be with. Now the physical rose has become like a proverbial one, meaning that instead of giving them a rose to hold in their hand. We're giving them something that represent that. It could be inspiration. It could be hope. It could be a successful life. It could be children. It could be marriage. It could be so many other things. But each of those things are going to lead to success because we are built as human beings to spend time with each other. So why not spend it with someone that's going to make you smile, make you happy, and more importantly, make you feel like you're the best person in the world?
Absolutely. And it's about having that same balance in a relationship, so that we're not only, we don't need to put people on pedestals, in other words, give more than we're receiving. It's about creating that balance so you've got that equal give and take, and you're treating him like your king as much as he's treating you like you're his queen. And, I think for all of us, that's what we'd love to enjoy in a healthy relationship, isn't it?
It is like there's so many studies. You can go out there and you can search and find out the personality type that you are and see some of the benefits and how compatibility there are. And then also you can find out what your love language is. And even though this is not me plugging a book, this is just me saying that you need to understand the way that you want to be loved. And once you find out and the way that you want to be loved, you have to communicate that to someone else. So for example, I'm the type of person that quality of time and words of affirmation are important to me. So when I go out there, I try to find someone that wants to spend time, that wants to hang out, that wants to do these things. Also one that could communicate well. And that's how I was able to find success, because if you're with someone who loves gifts and you're not a gift giver, there may be some difficulties there. So it's always understanding how you want to be loved and how you're going to communicate that.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter if somebody hasn't got those same top two love languages as their primary love languages. So long as you understand from each other what they are, you can help to facilitate what makes them feel loved, can't you? So for me, mine is physical touch. I love physical touch. So that wouldn't necessarily be a barrier to having a relationship with somebody like yourself that had got different love languages. It'd be just letting you know that that's what's my love language. And you could facilitate that for me the same as I could facilitate that for you in terms of what your needs are in terms of your love languages.
Oh yeah, and that's the key that you mentioned there, is that once you understand how the other person wants to be loved, then you're going to be accommodating. Because we don't want to get stuck in our own way. We're saying that, well, Lyn likes to physical touch, but I don't want her around me ever. Right? But yes, it's always a give and take. And I would say, Lyn, that's probably something that, looking back now, is missed, where we get so into our own way, where it's like, this is the only way that I can love, right? Like back in the day, it was, well, how can Lyn not be happy? There's a roof over her head, her bills are paid, and everything else. And then on vice versa is, how can Terraine not be happy? There's warm food on the table every time he comes home. But sometimes it's more than that. And I think the communication is key. It's not that we don't appreciate what you're doing. It's just, I appreciate what you're doing, but this will mean a little bit more to me, and seeing how you can do the give and take, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. So Trey, for the benefit of the audience that are listening, what is your best contact information should anybody want to get in touch with you around, if it's something around the help for women at risk in relationships or success in love?
Yeah, so everyone out there who's looking to find love in all the right places, you can reach out to me at www.behindtheshades.ca. That is my website. Visit there. You can book a free session, especially if you're coming from this conversation or from Lyn's podcast, because we want to make sure that we're helping everyone out there. As well as if you want to email me, it is behindtheshadesinterviews@gmail.com. And I'm on YouTube if you want to see any of my interviews as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So finally, just to wrap up this particular episode, Terraine, final words of wisdom around finding success in love that you can share with us.
Yes, my final words to everyone listening is that you are worthy of love. Show your worthiness. Go out there, get the type of love that you want, and live happily ever after.
Yeah. And you know what? You're not alone. If you've not learned from your previous relationships how to have healthy love, know that, there are people out here, such as Terraine, that can guide you and give you those tools. You're not on your own.
I 100% would agree with that. We're all in it together, guys. So let's help each other find the type of success and love that we want.
Well, thank you so much for today's episode, Terraine. It's been a pleasure as always, and no doubt we'll have future conversations. I'd love to invite you to be a guest on another episode going forward, and many more.
Yes, Lyn, I will always be available to you. So whenever it is you want me to come back, please reach out and I'll make the time.
Excellent. So on that note, I'm just going to leave viewers with True Love Starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.